Hello everyone, welcome to Indian Economy by Aman Soni. In today's news, sir, we would be discussing the important articles related to economy from the Hindu newspaper. Indian firms buy more oil from Russia, energy ties may deepen. We have read in the previous news hours that USA and the other European Union and the Western countries have imposed sanctions on Russia, because of which Russia has huge stock of oil, there is excess supply and there are no buyers. Russia has offered oil at a discounted price in order to attract the buyers. Various countries like India, China, and other majorly oil importing countries were attracted because of the offer, and the oil companies of those countries have taken up the offer now. Recently, the Indian oil companies had put tenders for accepting the Russian oil, and we have started purchasing the Russian oil. Now, what would be this impact on Indian economy? We were seeing that the oil prices were continuously increasing because of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, because of the supply chain disruptions. Now that we are going to get crude oil from Russia directly, here two things can happen. One is the direct oil impact, wherein the crude oil prices might slightly reduce and the future retail prices of petrol and diesel can slightly reduce because of the increase in supply from Russia at a cheaper prices. And USA may or may not impose sanctions on economies like China and India. We just have to wait and watch. India extends a $1 billion credit to Sri Lanka. Previously, we know that Sri Lanka is going through financial crisis. It is facing a foreign exchange crisis, because of which it is not able to pay for the imports for the foods, medicine, and all the essential items. It is not able to pay. China had given a credit line for Sri Lanka. India also in 2022 had extended a $400 million swap by the currency swap by the RBI, and we had given a $500 million of loan and other $500 million in terms of credit line. Credit line is giving credit to pay for the imports. So when Sri Lanka imports some items from India, on all the items listed in the document, we would be offering them at a credit so that Sri Lanka can pay us later on. This article is related to the railway sector. The author says that at the face value of the railway sector, we can see so much improvement happening, from the Vande Bharat Express to the Vistadome new coaches, and the way the railway stations are getting transformed, and the capital investments that the railway sector is taking, and high intake for the freight loading, and the number of accidents have reduced. All this is good, but there is some silent issue happening within the railways, that is the about the financial health of the railways. The author says that the government is confused. It is in a situation where on one side it has to show that the railways is a profitable venture of the government, on the other side it has to run it in a corporate manner, because of which it wants to show a profit in the railway sector from the railways. And the author claims that the government is fiddling with the accounts here in order to show the profits of the railways, because the author gives data about the pension outgo, when the pension payments for the railway employees was almost 52,000 crores. The amount that was taken from the books of the railway and allocated was just 49,000 crores. And by allocating only 49,000 crores, the nominal surplus was around 875 crores. If the entire amount would have been considered as the appropriated amount, that is considered as an expense, then railways would have been in a deficit of almost 2000 crores. So the author says that in order to show the business is profitable, in order to show that railways are profitable, we are trying to fiddle with the accounts. And the author also says that the railways are going for heavy investments. We are going for those investments which have long gestation periods. We are going for line doubling. We are going for 100% electrification. And all these projects may or may not be financially viable. And the returns for this project may take a long term. So you have to show these profits You have to show all this capital expenditure in your revenue accounts, and even if that means a loss in the current financial year and the coming financial years, that's okay because you're going for capital investments. The author also says that the 8th pay commission's impact would also further strain the finances of the rail. And the second aspect that the author talks about is the recent fiddling of the railway service. Earlier we know the railways had almost 8 different group A services, 5 related to the technical services and 3 related to the non-technical services. For the recruitment through the technical services, it used to happen through the combined engineering services exam, and for the non-technical services it used to happen through the civil services examination. Now the railways board has got to a proposal wherein everything is merged under the Indian Railway Management Service, and the reason given by the railway board is that having different streams of services leading to departmentalization, and there is no inter-department coordination, and efficient decision making is not happening. The author says that because of clubbing into everything, from an earlier 8,000 strength of group A services, now the future strength would reduce to 5,000 personnel, and there are various technical aspects in the railways, and who would take care of that? If there are no engineers who would take care of the technical services, the management graduates and the people who are able to do the general administration, they may not be able to take care of the technical services. That's the criticism of the author. He has detailedly talked about it. That is not very important for the exam, so you can skip that part. Again, in this article, in Sanctions route, what the world must take note of. We have been daily reading news about how USA and the European countries are putting sanctions over sanctions on Russia for invading Ukraine. The author says that Russia is doing something which is against the international law. That is very clear. But can you oppose the same thing by going against some other international law? No, right? We can't make a right by committing another wrong. So that is what the author is talking about in this article. So he says that Russia invading Ukraine is clearly a violation of the international law. But are sanctions justified? Are sanctions justified under the WTO Act? Let's look into it. Recently, Canada has removed the Russia from the most favored nation status. Under WTO World Trade Organization, what is most favored nation status? When you give a most favored nation status to one country, it means that you would treat all other countries in a similar way. Whatever benefits you give to that particular country, all the other WTO members have to be treated with the same set of offers that you are giving to that particular country. And the author asked the question that is Canada justified in removing Russia from the most favored nation status? USA and EU had also removed Russia from the Developed Countries Coordination Group. It is an informal group under the WTO, and they gave the reason that because Russia is in violation of UN Charter and the fundamental principles related to international peace and security. So the author asked the question, does WTO allow its members to impose sanctions on each other because of peace and security reasons? Here there is a nuanced approach because under the WTO rules, under the Article 22 of the GATT, that is the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trades, a member country can adopt measures what it considers necessary for protection of its essential security interests. So the GATT Article 21 has provisions regarding protecting the security interests of a country, and a member country take measures what it considers necessary. There are no clearly defined measures here in during the times of war and other emerging international situations. So the author here basically says that if Canada can justify that it has suspended the MFM status from Russia under the security interest part, it is justified, but Canada has to show that it has done under this article itself. But if it is justified like how USA and UA have said that because Russia has breached international peace and security, that is not justified under WTO because WTO is not concerned with international peace and security. So the article final the ends by saying that you cannot set a wrong of the breach of an international law by breaching another international law, because if we go on breaching international law, then every country would breach the international law and nobody would respect the rules based order. In the business page, we have already discussed in the previous news hour about the global risk that the Indian economy is facing, so we need not go through the details again. Here this is not important. Ukraine war could cut global growth by 1%. OECD has projected that because of the conflict between Russia and Ukraine, the global growth would almost get affected by the 1%. We are seeing how the oil prices are getting affected, how various chipset chip manufacturing is getting affected because various materials like the palladium which are available in Russia, neon gas which is available from Ukraine, all these are getting affected. Oil sector is getting affected, the chip sector is getting affected, shipping sector is getting affected. We have seen how the insurance costs in the shipping sector have increased whereas the freight costs were already very high. And OECD has also said that our governments would go for fiscal spending because there will be a contraction in GDP, there will be effect on the economy, and at this time you should go at least for 0.5 increase spending of your GDP percentage so that the effect of the Russia-Ukraine conflict won't be seen on your domestic economy. Europe is highly dependent on Russian energy imports, and this negative import of Russia-Ukraine war would be seen more on the European economy, and these countries' economy would get affected to an extent of almost 1.4 percentage of growth rates. Even though Russia Ukraine make up only 2% of global GDP, but still their impact is very huge because of their major producers of various raw materials like we saw how it was manufacturers in palladium and neon gas which is used in chips and other cars to fertilizers, and that is why central banks have to be ready to brace for the impact of Russia Ukraine conflict. Here we just need to see the trend. Cotton textile exports are increasing. We need not read the news articles. Again here the direct tax receipts are increasing the estimated of the budget. These are the articles related to economy today. Thank you so much.